And he doesn't think he
Kanye
needs to do any
West
of
calls Twitter chief Elon Musk a half-Chinese clone engineered like Obama.
Boom! Boom!
Musk says he's taking West's comment as a compliment. Well, you shouldn't want to. If you have a person like that speaking, you can always block them. You don't have to listen.
I agree with you.
They say.
You
don't have. You don't have to read it. Like,
correct. I'm with you.
There's a thing though when a person is like that I think there's a great value in pushing back against him. And if he was a person that could learn from that, maybe there'd be a great value of him reading some of the pushback against him and altering the way he thinks.
That was, of course, podcast giant Joe Rogan advocating for Kanye West to be brought back onto Twitter to, quote, learn from his mistakes. Robbie, what do you think of that suggestion?
I mean, I don't think that's a bad impulse at all, frankly. If you believe in free speech in a kind of philosophical way, I think you have to have faith that good ideas over time win out and are persuasive. Like, if you don't think treating other people with humanity and grace and, like, if you don't think anti-Nazism is persuasive in the long run, then you just don't believe in, I guess, like the project of liberalism at all, or the project of, or of human nature.
Look, I don't know that it's completely fair. I mean,
most people are bad and their views must be brutally suppressed at all costs. It's a very sad world to live in.
Let's not overstate Kanye being kicked off Twitter. I don't know is the exact same thing as his opinions being brutally suppressed. I'm sure he could get on any number of TV or radio shows tomorrow and say what he wants to say, as evidenced by the whole media tour he did a month ago that culminated in him getting kicked off Twitter in the first place. But look, I think that there is something to be said about the fact that Kanye does not seem to be served by increased isolation in his personal life. Now, that's none of our business. That's not Elon Musk's business. But from like a psychological perspective,
you're talking about the split from Kim?
Just generally speaking, Kanye being increasingly siloed in his personal life from social media, whatever, does not seem to be inuring to his benefit. That's just my armchair perspective on things. However, I think the real problem here is that none of this should be about like what would be good for Kanye's mental health or what would be good for Kanye's personal growth. The question here is whether or not Kanye should be back on the app according to some concrete, generalizable principles that we can all predict and be subject to equally, not based on whether or not we have a personal relationship with Elon Musk. This is what it is over and over and over again. And the problem with Kanye is that the last time he was kicked off, it was not clear what the policy violation actually was. It was clear that he was going on a world tour of saying anti-Semitic things and sounding not great. And then he ultimately tweeted that weird swastika Star of David thing, which again, not a fan, but it's not clear that that actually violated Twitter policy. If Twitter policy changed in some way so that it was violative of Twitter policy. And so now the question about whether he can come back on is not tethered to anything concrete. If he comes back on, what does it mean for him to violate again? Is it if he tweets that same thing out? Is it going to be actually warned about what the line actually is? Was he kicked off for the right reasons? Can he be brought back on and reined in any kind of way? I mean, it's a wild, wild west out here. So you almost expect people to violate policy again when the conduct is so unbound, when the rules are so unbound.
Yeah, when you have no idea what they are.
Yeah.
And when they can just be enforced, and when they're so vague that something can be a policy violation or not be a policy violation, it's just totally up to.
Yeah. Plus, he's been brought back before already after apparently violating, again, by what standard, who knows. So it's like, what are the rules? Like, if you get kicked off, is it like a waiting period of 3 months before you're allowed back on? Are you ever permanently banned? What do you have to do something in the interim to earn your position back on Twitter? Do you have to make some kind of apology? Do you have to pay a certain amount to Twitter Blue? Like, what are the rules?
Right. Well, and I've long thought that would be the best improvement, is that not that you end content moderation, but you have to make it. It's better for people's mental health, frankly, to know why there was an action taken against them, what that was, when it will go away, or what steps they need to take to be back in the platform's good graces, so they're not thinking, am I being suppressed? What's going on?
Yes.
That makes people crazy. And
so many people who have been blocked or banned, even temporarily, have made that exact complaint, that they get these really vague notes. Your account has been banned because of blank, and that it doesn't seem to actually violate any policy. Then they'll get back on the app, but they feel like they've been put in the penalty box for no reason. At very least, if you're going to be put into the penalty box, you need to have a clear rationale so you know that you can avoid it, and also have an understanding of when you can get back on. And it's worth noting that, okay, maybe Kanye and their average user doesn't really need Twitter for anything other than entertainment and news. But there are a lot of people who earn their livelihoods on these kinds of apps, so that when YouTube deplatforms
like us.
people.
Hello.
Yeah,
hi, right here.
These consequences, I mean,
yeah.
Elon Musk making it difficult to share certain kind of links to certain other kind of platforms hurts people's bottom line. Twitter is a huge platform that folks use to direct their base to other content that's in other apps that have a better space for longer form content. You know, taking people's accounts down the way they did for a lot of RT people like Abby Martin, who almost lost her entire catalog, but for her mother having like kind of sweetly recorded all her episodes of her podcast on CD-ROMs. Like that kind of stuff has real economic impacts. And so for someone who is like a businessman and really prides himself on kind of supporting markets in that way, I don't know, like it seems like rich people are playing games with each other that are based on their personal proclivities and friendships and stuff. But the lack of policy certainty is having horrible downstream effects for people who are trying to earn a living. Well,
there are editorial impacts. We had an issue yesterday, I won't get into it at great length, where we were unclear, me and the producers of the show were unclear whether we could play a certain clip very much relating to the news that had been played by other news channels, because we didn't know how YouTube would handle us doing it because of the past alleged violation on our part. And it was we ended up not using material that I think it would have been beneficial for the audience to see because it was unclear.
It wasn't worth the risk.
It wasn't worth the risk. And that is just deeply frustrating. But we couldn't ask someone. They wouldn't be clear with us. It's very frustrating.
Yeah. Very
frustrating position to be in. One other aspect of this, though, that I think doesn't get talked about enough, that Joe Rogan kind of touched on there, was the whole, let's say we leave Kanye on Twitter. No one is forcing you to consume Kanye's tweets. In fact, it is trivially easy to not see them by muting him. And we often pretend like the best solution is to come up with one set of rules that everybody has to follow is better than unclear rules that are enforced selectively, and in case you're in the good graces of the new person or the old person, whoever it is. But devolving content moderation to the users is also a strategy, one that I think can take the sting out of a lot of these decisions. Let's empower users to have more of the experience that they want to have on the platform, that help them, prompt them to make choices about what kind of content they're consuming, instead of just saying, oh, we flagged this because we think this would be bad for you. Why don't you let me make that choice, or the other users? And that way, because people are different and not everyone wants to have the same experience on all these platforms.
Yeah, because I just don't think I don't think it's actually about people not wanting to see the content themselves. They want to punish folks who have beliefs that aren't like theirs. Now, I don't think there's something morally wrong with wanting to punish someone with anti-Semitic beliefs. Like, I completely understand and empathize with that. But the question is, who gets to decide who gets punished? And are you always going to be so confident that it's the person who has anti-Semitic beliefs or some other kind of, I would argue, objectively bad perspective? Or is it really not even about that? And it's about whatever negotiations Kanye and Musk are going through. It's about whether Alex Jones has personally offended Elon Musk because he's talking about dead children, and Elon suffered that kind of a horrible loss, et cetera, et cetera.
All right, that does it for us for today. Tomorrow, Rising will be back with all of the news that's fit to print. Not exactly, because we're not a print publication, but there you go. I just said that.
All the news that's fit to speak. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe so you never miss any content. And for those of you who prefer to listen while on the go, we are now available anywhere you listen to podcasts.
Adios, amigos.
See you tomorrow.